Whenever me mother met anyone in trouble, she'd always say, "Don't worry now, I'll light a lamp for you in John's Lane." I suppose behind all those candles burning, there's a family story. Stories of sorrow and sadness, sickness and health, failure and success. Stories of faith, hope and charity. Sure, even the candle itself has its own Dublin story. "500 years ago, a Dublin child by the name of John Rathborne played in these streets. He watched the trade guild parades. He liked the tallow chandlers. He listened to the bow bell of Christchurch Cathedral and made up his mind to become a tallow chandler. Maybe it was their emblem he liked, which was a large golden owl that could see in the dark. Or maybe it was the wording on their coat of arms, "Let your light so shine." In 1488 in Wine Tavern Street he started, and 492 years later the candles are still burning. But they didn't always stay in Wine Tavern Street. They crossed the Stony Batter, and John and his grandson and his great-grandson and the next generation of Rathbornes were still in Stony Batter when candlelight law was proclaimed in 1616. St. Mickens was the family church. Here the Rathbornes were baptised, confirmed, married, and some of them laid to rest. They were in Parnell Street too, which was Great Britain Street then, but they didn't stay there. Joseph leased premises in Boot Lane at the corner of Mary's Abbey and continued the candlemaking business. When he died, the son William wanted open spaces, green fields and fresh country air. He got up on his horse, rode out to Dunsink, saw what he wanted, liked the lie of the land, and made a deal for 16 acres just below Dunsink Observatory with a man by the name of William Connolly in Selbridge. He built this fine house from stone taken from a nearby quarry, and at the rear of the house he built his candle-making factory, which today is a printing ink factory. 1782, a receipt bought off William Rathborne 6 beeswax candles for 17 shillings. There's his moniker, or his signature as he'd call it. And here's the Dublin Gazette talking about the daughter's marriage. And what a fine girl she was. A lady possessed of beauty, merit and a fortune. How is it I couldn't have met a girl like that? But his son Henry leased lands at Ashtown and built this fine house, which he called Dunsinia. It's now belonged to one Forrest Taluntas. In the summertime, Henry didn't sack the workers when the work went slack. So they in turn used to go out and help with the crops and the land. What a pleasure it must have been, here beside the Royal Canal and the Tolka, making candles and reaping the harvest. 1865, another of the Rathbornes going to the altar for his nuptials, and the workers all got together to give him an illuminated address. There's the names of the old Dublin candle makers, the Levinstones, the Lynches, the Vaughans, the Kavanaghs, the Dailies. His son John Garnett leased land at the Lots at the North Wall, which is now East Wall. The business was to pass out of the Rathborne family, and in 1966 they merged with Lawlers. I suppose it all starts with the arrival of the paraffin wax, the stuff that most candles are made from nowadays. It's a product of the petroleum industry. It's John Mackey's and Michael Bell's job to melt down the slabs of wax in the boiler, or the hole as they call it, to supply the factory. John's ready now to turn on the boiling water. The wax is what you call wet boiled. Steam is forced through it, causing it to melt. For thousands of years, tallow or meat grease has been used for making candles, and it wasn't until 1857 that it was discovered if you superheated crude oil in steam stills, the byproducts you got were lubricating oil, burning oil and paraffin wax. The molten wax is now pumped up into the great vats, made like giant barrels, each vat holding 2.5 tons of wax. Water and impurities, which are heavier than molten wax, sink to the bottom and are drained off. The liquid wax flows under gravity to the factory floor and is held in wax pans. Jerry O'Brien looks after 4 household candle moulding machines. At each filling, the moulding machine makes 518 candles. The wicks are suspended down the centre of the moulds under slight tension. They are held in place on top by the last batch of candles that have been cast. The temperature of the cooling water is important. Too cold and you get what the chandler calls rotten candles. When the wax has set, the top candles can be cut free. They are held in clamps, which were invented by a Londoner, Joe Tuck, in the year 1842. The top of the mould is cleaned off with a special type of chisel. Then it's back on with the empty clamp and the candles can be cranked up out of the mould. Jerry is never idle, continually moving between his 4 machines. It takes an average of 20 minutes for the wax to set. The wicks have to be changed too. This reminds me a bit of the weaver having to pass all his warp threads through the eyes in the heddles. Very tedious. Somebody under the bed, whoever can it be? I feel so very nervous, I call for Eileen. Eileen lights the candle, nobody there. Dee-eye, diddly-die, and out goes she. Proddy, proddy on the wall, a half a loaf to feed yous all, a farden candle to show you light, to read the Bible of a Saturday night. Well, many's the Saturday night I had me farden candle. Only God forgive me, it wasn't the Bible I was reading. No, it was all them penny horribles, the dandy, the beano, the wizard, the hotspur and the rover. Bob McCormick is the expert when it comes to mixing the various coloured dyes. He's weighing out a red dye that comes from Holland. He has to calculate very accurately the exact amount of crystals needed. To dye the full wax pan a deep rich red for moulding Christmas candles. Did your mother get a red candle from the grocer at Christmas? And did you do the lighting if you were the youngest in the house and put it in the window to burn brightly for the stranger passing by that he might drop in for a bite to eat? Well, this is how it was made. Wouldn't mind having all that surplus wax for lighting the fire in the morning. Isn't that interesting, the way these candles twist out of the fluted moulds? Do you see the movable tip piece or piston for pushing the candles out? Well, that was first invented by Joe Morgan of Manchester in 1834. Very ingenious. These red hostess candles are the ones you see in all the nice fancy candle holders. I'm afraid the old custom of putting the lighting candle in the window is dying out. But there's an even older custom that's coming back in again. The Advent candle dates from the old pagan custom of light overcoming darkness. And the purple Advent candle signifies the coming of Christ. No, we're not making cakes or mixing dough for Christmas. Pauline Shelley is dipping what will become a Yule log into frothy paraffin wax. A coating of wax gives a nice translucent effect. There's not a very long tradition in these Yule logs. A Christmas decorative table light, going back about 20 years. But the Yule log that burns on the fire, well, now that's a different story. And after the wicks are dropped in, another fall of snow, and now they're ready for the final decoration. The little bit of holly. These are St. Martin's candles. They're very popular with the Dublin people. Of course, St. Martin and the Dominican Church in Dominic Street was always popular. This is where the wicks are pre-waxed for the church candles, which are made in the beeswax department. And when the wax is dried, the wicks are cut off the drum. Now they will be trimmed down to the correct lengths to suit the larger church candles and sent on their way to the beeswax department wrapped in brown paper. Chandler. That's a translation from the Latin word Candlemaker. Chandler, the man who makes or sells candles. It's also used by the grocer, who sells small wares as well. We're now in the beeswax department. Of course, beeswax candles are for the church. For mystical reasons, the Roman Catholic Church insists on beeswax candles for Mass and other occasions. Bobby Lapla is in charge of this department. The carousel is like a chandelier in reverse. The wicks are hung instead of standing up straight, as they will when they have become candles. Bobby Lapla is a highly skilled operator. But of course Bobby's at this since he left school, since he was a chiseler. His father before him was a candle maker. The dipping starts. Down they go, and up they come, a little thicker. And down and up they keep going, getting thicker and thicker and thicker. The wax in this pan is a little cooler than its neighbour because the surface area of the candle is less. The calipers are taken out to check the dimensions. Bobby must use them constantly to ensure each candle is the same size in diameter. The candles are very flexible at this stage, for all the world like giant strands of spaghetti. They're laid on a marble slab and hand-rolled into shape. Then they're trimmed. And when the rolling and trimming is done, they are reversed and hung up again for more dipping. Candles have been used for thousands of years. Socketed candelabra were discovered in the volcanic ash of Pompeii in Italy, which was destroyed 79 years before the birth of Christ. In the ancient Irish authorities, the Sanctus Mór tells of candles of 8 fists, about 40 inches long, made by repeated dipping of peeled rushes into tallow or meat grease. Sure, where would we be without candles? What would the clergy do for the 40 hours adoration if we hadn't a candle? And when you go to get your throat blessed on the Feast of St. Blaise, Candlemas Day, the 2nd of February, don't they do the blessing with 2 candles? Bobby is tipping the candles. It's hard physical work and a warm job, with added heat from the pans of molten wax. Do you remember all those lovely processions, torchlight processions, that the Oblate Fathers had at the Inchicore Grotto? And all the thousands of paper lanterns, all different colours with little candles, and the lights swaying to and fro. And when you look back at the procession, it was like a long road of hope shining in the darkness. This is a very ancient method of making candles and has been going on in Dublin for almost 500 years. Hand casting Paschal candles. first the wick has to be waxed and stretched. The reason for this is to get the wick well impregnated with wax, and also when the wax is poured over it, it will flow down it nicely and smoothly.
Possibly another passage for inscription. Lower down the base.
Right, Bobby, usual.
I don't like all those electric light shrines in some churches. You know, 9 out of 10 times when you push the button, your light doesn't come on. And it's sort of like being shut down with your intention before you start. Now, that could never happen with a candle. It might flicker and go out, but you can always dip it in again and light it. And then, you know, after you've left the church, the old candle is burning away there, plugging in your request. If they don't get rid of those electric shrines and get back to the burning candle, there's a danger that in the future they'll have us renouncing the devil with a flash lamp. I wonder how long it'll take that candle to burn out. 1981? 82? Will it be still there in 1985? A giant candle, Kinyal Henri, or the King's Candle, as it used to be called in the old days. It stood lighting outside the king's tent at Éire. In fact, the man who held the candle was called the light holder. And anybody by the name of light holder today, well, that's what your ancestors held. I'll say one thing for your ancestors: they must have been very big men. A candle like this one was made for the visit of Pope John Paul to Ireland. It has to be cast upright in a special mould. We're now in Jack McCann's sanctum, the testing department.
Mr. McCann, this is the 313 week.
It's a 313 German,
Yes.
like.
And that's the old week.
That's the old one there. They're not too bad comparing each one against the other.
No, there seems to be a bigger flame after new week we're after getting in.
Yeah. And the well doesn't seem to be quite as big on that one as it is on that one.
No, but
the flame
it's burning, you know.
Yeah, it's burning quite well, all right. You would want to leave it for a while just to see. We'll come back to it in about a half an hour, 3/4 of an hour and see. It's flickering a bit, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you close over that door, Bob.
Yes.
There you are now. You didn't know the candles were tested to ensure that the wicks are burning true and bright. And now packaging and final preparation. The fluting at the end gives a self-fit. No trimming needed to get the candle into the candlestick. Shrine candles, perhaps on their way to Whitefriars Street Church or John's Lane, packed with care by Helen Kyle. Household candles, coloured candles, large candles, small candles, Yule logs, altar candles, all on their way to brighten the world. What John Rathbone started in 1488, still going strong in Dublin. Well, that's the candle's story. And before I leave you now, in case you're alone tonight, or you're worried about something, as me mother used to say, don't be worrying. On my way home, I'll light a candle for you. And I will, you know.